coming. We are inviting people to lay down on the ground and act as corpses for the urgency of this climate crisis.
This is to symbolize how we have 11 years to avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. We are striking because it'll be good for us now and in the long run. We are striking because our governments are procrastinating, and there is no last-minute cramming when it comes to the future of the human race. In the meantime, while we wait for our politicians to act, we won't be idle. We will keep on striking, keep on raising awareness, and keep on conserving. Reducing our meat consumption, using energy-efficient bulbs, saving water, picking up litter. No one can do it all, especially not alone, but we all can contribute. Yes, not everyone is educated about climate change. I have some classmates who would only strike to miss school. But they aren't the movement. We are. We are the ones who care, who wish we could be in school right now studying for our future, but we know we won't have one unless we are here striking. And we are many. If we all care enough to take action, then our governments and large corporations will follow suit. Remember, we are the consumers, the demand, and the constituents. We have influence. Don't forget that. Politics moves slowly, but climate change is quick, so we need to be quicker. There is strength in numbers, and we have the strength and the numbers, so let's use them.
Last year, by the first day of August, we had already used up 1 full year's worth of natural resources, how much the planet can replenish and rejuvenate in a year's time. We're in global overshoot, and obviously, this cannot continue. We can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. This is madness, absolute craziness. We're living in the Great Death. And look around. Most people are walking around as if everything is just fine. It's business as usual. But our own state of North Carolina was rocked by 2 500-year floods in 1 month last year. And the wildfire season out west has increased by 100 days in just the last 2 decades. We need a massive collective wake-up call to even stand a chance for any kind of sustainable future. And that's where the Friday Strike for Climate comes in. This next decade truly is our last best chance for a livable planet for our children and our grandchildren.
I commend you for striking, for standing for what is the defining issue of our time, of our generation, of your generation. What Clean Air Carolina has been doing for the last 14 years is fighting fossil fuels. Some of you around here were with us when we fought Duke Energy's coal plant, and now we're fighting their Atlantic Coast Pipeline, their major investment in fossil fuels, their ridiculous goal for renewable energy in their portfolios. So we work at the state level, local level, and national level. My advice to you all would be to keep your movement diverse, keep it strong, focus on justice, and make it personal, because this is personal for each one of you.
Did you know that almost 60% of the world's population lives in an environment where an increase in temperature could lead to much more disastrous effects? Most of the world is at the brink of a total meltdown. But we can prevent that. Already, by June this year, 9 developing countries will present their plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 to the United Nations. While this is amazing, this is not enough. These countries are pioneers for what we hope will become a much larger movement. And that movement starts here, in a country full of privilege and knowledge, where we have the resources and funds to spark the movement, grease its wheels, and make a difference. Change begins here. First Charlotte, then the world. Thank you.
Climate change denial is promoted today by the same people who pushed the lie that asbestos does not harm people and cigarettes don't either. They lie for profit. It's their business. I've toured North Carolina with the Poor People's Campaign National Emergency Truth and Poverty Bus Tour for the past 5 days and can report firsthand that we do not need to go to the southern border to find a national emergency. They're happening all over America, and they're happening right here in North Carolina. Poor and minority populations are disproportionately impacted by environmental injustice. Stronger, more devastating storms are shattering people's lives and businesses. We've experienced 3 1,000-year rain events in the past 3 years in this region, each destroying countless homes, dams, roads, bridges, and lives. When Hurricane Florence hit, we weren't done cleaning up from Hurricane Matthew. There were still people living outside of their homes. Now, months after Hurricane Florence, we still have people not allowed to return to their homes. People who can't repair their homes, and people who are living practically with no hope. These people are suffering. They're suffering because of climate-related disaster right here at home. These climate strikers and their generation are tasked with cleaning up the polluted mess our society and older generations have created over the past 100 years.
So the choices that we make each day are very important, and they have big impacts on the planet. In fact, if everybody used as much resources as the average American, we would need 4 planet Earths. That is not sustainable. So all of our choices, including our diet, are going to be important if we're going to be able to survive on this planet. So because we do make such a big footprint, we can make a big difference with those choices. And one of the ways we can do that is by looking for sustainable products and sustainable foods. So looking for things that are certified, like certified organic, certified Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade certified, Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil certified, Forest Stewardship Council certified. All of these organizations, their goal is to help us live sustainably on this planet and provide us the things that we need in a sustainable way. So making those choices every day will make a huge difference. Of course, there's lots of other things we can do, including speaking or getting our voices heard, which is what we're all doing here today. And I hope the youth continue to do this movement. Thank you.
So why are we in school studying when you won't listen to the educated? Why learn facts when in our society, facts are being ignored? Our future is being determined right now. We are feeling the effects of climate change right now. We are not here to beg our leaders and politicians to care. We are here to tell them the youth of this world have risen, and we will not stop until the change we need, we deserve, and future generations of humanity deserve is implemented. The change is coming, whether the world likes it or not. We will not back down. We will not back down until we implement a Green New Deal and declare a national emergency on the climate crisis, because that's what climate change is, a crisis. Climate change strikes hard, and we can strike harder.
Public transit, walking, biking, electric scooters, and other forms of transportation that are not cars haven't been the norm here in Charlotte. But it's time to change that. Emissions from vehicles are one of the leading sources of carbon pollution in our city. In order to reduce our carbon emissions, we need to design communities that don't require a car to get around. That's why Sustain Charlotte advocates for smart growth. When we design for people first rather than cars, we build communities that are healthier, safer, and that reduce our carbon footprint. Public transit, walking, biking, electric scooters, and other forms of transportation that are not cars haven't been the norm here in Charlotte. But it's time to change that. Emissions from vehicles are one of the leading sources of carbon pollution in our city. In order to reduce our carbon emissions, We need to design communities that don't require a car to get around. That's why Sustain Charlotte advocates for smart growth. When we design for people first rather than cars, we build communities that are healthier, safer, and that reduce our carbon footprint.
I'm 14 years old, and this week is week 10 of my school strike for climate action. People ask me all the time why I strike. I start my spiel. Because our house is on fire and politicians just want to install smoke detectors and see what happens. Why sit in school and study science when people in power don't listen to the brightest brains in science, telling them we are literally destroying the world? I continue to speak about the myriad of issues that come along with our burning planet, including the inevitable economic strife, food and water crises, millions of climate refugees, political upheaval, global war, and I am interrupted. No, they say, why do you strike? Aren't there easier ways? Nothing easy right now even begins to touch on the urgency and necessity of action. Nothing is radical enough. Because right now, radical climate action is literally the most rational thing we can do. As a 14-year-old, I can't vote, I can't run for office. My one and only job is to go to school. So I disrupt the system, and I don't. Not on Fridays, at least. And people notice. People question, and people learn. Even if they don't talk to me, even if they pretend to be looking right through me, they've noticed, and they've wondered. Even if they've only muttered school strike for climate under their breath with a disapproving shake of their head, they've thought about the climate. They've noticed there's something wrong with this picture. I love school, and I always have. I would not strike if it was not 100% necessary. Striking is the consequences of your actions that I have to endure. If I just wanted to skip school, I would be at home on the couch, not in the freezing rain or getting hot, sweaty, and sunburned. I wouldn't be at public forums, in meetings, on calls. When I strike, very few people actually stop to talk to me. Most pretend to stare right through me or opt for the study the ground or stare vacantly at the screen of a phone that's not even on method. But I understand. It's terrifying. I am the culmination of their worst fears. Looking at me, talking to me, they are looking at their children and grandchildren and watching them burn. They are looking at a young person who is politically active and knowledgeable that they can't shake off as some stupid Instagram-obsessed kid. They are looking at a whole generation that will constantly run from disaster. They are looking into the eyes of someone they've betrayed. Young climate activists are told all the time that we are the future by the same people that got us into this mess, by adults that continue life as it is. Don't tell me I am the future. Go out and do whatever it takes to give me that future. In the words of Greta Thunberg, I don't want you to be hopeful, I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day, and then I want you to act. Our generation is a generation raised by so-called helicopter parents who, according to Google, are parents who, quote, take an overprotective or excessive interest in the life of their children, and, quote, lawnmower parents who plow the way through before their child, making sure there is not a single blade of grass in their way, only for their child to get to the real world and be slapped in the face by all the things their parents tried to protect them from. While there are more than a few errors logically with this parenting method, I'd be fine with it if parents protected their children from what was actually going to hurt them: climate change. As Greta Thunberg says, you say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Grandparents, your legacy is no longer what you leave for your children. It is what kind of world you leave for them. Parents, protect your children from what matters most, the climate crisis. And kids, if they won't do it, we will. And we already are. On March 15th, 1.5 million kids striked on what was called the biggest day of global climate action in history. Greta Thunberg, founder of the Fridays for Future movement, was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. If she wins, she will be the youngest recipient ever. And forget globally, we are already having success just in Charlotte. City council members are reaching out, asking me questions and listening, really listening, to my visions and suggestions for how Charlotte as a city can change. my friend and climate sister, Alexandria Villasenor, who's been striking for 20 weeks in New York, is now inside the UN almost as much as she's striking outside it. When people visit or walk by my strikes, they often wish me good luck with a sad look in their eyes. Pity? Defeat? I'm unsure, but they look at me like my effort is useless. Some flat out tell me I'm going to lose. Look around, I say. We are already winning.
Let's give a big hand to our young leaders here. When I see you all giving your precious commodity, which is time, to fighting the climate change, the world's greatest crisis, you don't only give me hope, but you inspire me to take swift action and work harder, regardless of the challenges. You give me an important message that says, do not give up, no matter what the challenges are. And I thank you for doing that. As many of you know, 2018 was a historic year for our city, where we approved Strategic Energy Action Plan, and I like to call that as a local new Green Deal, before it was sexy and glamorous thing to do, where our city council took a bold action to fight the climate change by putting together a framework to transition to low carbon future, where we had very bold goals for our city operations for 2030 to transition to low carbon future, and for our city to transition to low carbon future by 2050. Within 48 hours of approving the CAP, which I like to call as a local new Green Deal, which was approved unanimously, that sends a very strong message that climate change is not and should not be a partisan issue, because there is no clean air, there is no blue or red air, or there is no blue or red water. There is clean air and there is clean water. Within 48 hours of approving the CAP, we won American City's Climate Challenge when Mayor Bloomberg came to town and awarded us over $2.5 million in resources to fight the climate change. But our work should not end here. In fact, it's just the beginning of a new era, of an important era, where we deliver on our promises. Commitment is one first important step, but following on our commitment is when rubber meets the road. What is climate change? I often get that question. What is climate change? It's nothing but the pollution that is from carbon. Across the world, 16% of premature deaths are the direct result of exposure to the pollution, which means 9 million human beings, which is 3 times more than tuberculosis, malaria, and AIDS combined. Nearly 1 in 4 kids under the age of 5 are dying from the pollution. 1 in 4. And 4 million kids each year develop asthma because of the pollution. This is a serious business. And we must act now and stop the pollution that threatens our health and our children's ability to breathe. How can we sit on the sidelines knowing these numbers? Our kids are fighting for their future. Our kids are fighting to breathe. And if we claim to love them, then we must act now. Which means hold us accountable. Hold your local elected officials accountable, especially with the budget season around the corner. Hold us accountable to ensure that we meet our CAP goals, which is the Strategic Energy Action Plan, because that's when we can deliver on our promises. Hold our elected officials accountable at every level, local, state, and federal. And most importantly, get involved and stay involved. This is a matter of our children's ability to breathe. Thank you all so much for having me. Let's give our younger generation a big round of applause because they deserve it.
So, why climate strike?
We climate strike because as young people, we can't vote, we can't run for office, and so the one thing that our job is to go to school. So we go to school so that we can disrupt the system so that people notice and people care.
Okay. And is this just a local action? Or
Oh, definitely not. There's millions of kids around the world. In fact, on March 15th, we had 1.5 million kids strike in the biggest day of global climate action in history. But yeah, I'm connected with activists all across the country and actually internationally. But it's been wonderful to see how quickly the movement has grown, and it's slowly spreading in the United States. So.
How do you feel about today?
I think it went really well. It was really nice to have all of these people because normally it's just me sitting alone. So it was really nice to feel a sense of unity and to have so many people come out to support the cause.
Okay, thank you for what you do tonight. Why is climate important?
Well, the climate is what we feel around us. It's our temperature, it's our weather, it's all of the, and it affects many environmental aspects of the earth. And the thing is, if our climate is affected, if the thing is, one of the misconceptions about the ozone layer is that it makes holes which allows the climate change and global warming makes holes to allow for the sun's radiation and ultraviolet rays to come in, which is warming the earth. And while that is true, it is also thickening the ozone layer at the same time. And that radiation, it's not that it's just coming in, but it's also that it's not going out. There is no space for it to come out, and now that's making the earth warm and also making our grass not green and making the environment so much less healthy and unstable for humans to live in.
Okay. How did you get involved with climate strike?
So our co-president, Kate Harrison, she organized the strike on March 15th at Marshall Park, and the funny story is my friend actually cut off part of my middle finger when we were doing a science project, and that's how I was able to attend, because then I couldn't play in our band trip. And now I'm the co-president, and I was always interested in this. And in like 4th grade, we participated in Future Problem Solvers. We still do today, and the international conference was about renewable energy, and that's when I really started to become aware of the issue. And when I learned about these strikes, I really wanted to get involved. Yeah.
Comments on how climate change might impact indigenous or those less fortunate?
Yeah, well, the thing is, because they don't have access to as many of the resources we have, well, they may not be contributing to climate change as much. Because of that, they're still feeling the effects that we are making and contributing to the environment, which is a problem, because if they don't have the resources to have this huge effect on the climate and make all this climate change happen, they don't have the resources to combat it and fight it. And we're already fighting on our own. And all these places like Bangladesh, Haiti, their temperatures are warmer than ours. They have warmer climates in general. But the warming of just 1 degree Celsius in a country with a normal temperature of 25 degrees Celsius could be detrimental to their environment. And we're trying to fight over here, but that means that, and since we know what we're doing, we need to help them in those countries because they need help. And so once we get our acts together, we can go help them. And we might be having a day of action here.
Kind of the mission of the City Student Climate Strike over the summer is. So for me, when I was like 6 or 7, I first picked up a book about just the world, and it mentioned that the ice caps were melting and it was going to affect a lot of polar bears. So when I was 9, I went vegetarian, and because animal agriculture contributes to about 1/4 of all of our greenhouse gas emissions. And then I saw Greta Thunberg's speech at the World Economic Forum, and I decided that I needed to take action as well and strike from school. So.
And how did you feel about today?
I feel like there's a sense of unity in that there's so many people that care about these issues, they care about climate, and I think that we're only growing stronger. Like on March 15th, we had 8 people out, and today we have so many more, and we're only growing stronger. And I think more people are becoming aware of this issue. Like more people are understanding because we're seeing the effects today. And I think that the change is coming, especially since a couple of days ago the UK Parliament voted to declare a climate emergency. So people are listening and the change is coming.
I got one more. A little bit about what it took to organize this event. What kind of thinking or phone calls? How did you all get the word out, that kind of stuff?
So we started by, we're trying to organize events all over North Carolina. So we have we're going to have a strike in Raleigh, Greenville, and Asheville on the 24th. But for Charlotte, it was more, we had to get our permits, we had to get our event permit and a noise permit. Luckily, Mary Ellis already had the event permits. And then we just started contacting organizations for outreach and for speakers. And then we just tried to share this with as many people as possible. Reached out to environmental club leaders at every single school in Charlotte, and unfortunately none of them really responded. But I think that's just because less than half of teachers have even mentioned climate change in their classrooms. So I think that there's a multitude of reasons. Some people don't believe in climate change, and also some people just don't feel like they understand the issue enough to really talk about it, and a lot of people think that it won't affect them, so why would we discuss it when it won't affect them? It's just hotter summers, and a lot of my classmates have been like, oh, I'm kind of worried about how hot the summers are going to be, and don't understand the effects of natural disasters, droughts, flooding in our economy. And there are still lots of climate change deniers out there, and I feel like teachers and parents in general feel like they'll offend some people by talking about.
How about asking people to get involved, with climate action?
Yes. Okay, so you can come strike with Mary Ellis. She strikes every single Friday at the Charlotte City Government Center from all of the school day, so that's about 9:30 to 3 or so, and also just reach out. So the most important individual action that I think is pretty easy and everyone could take is doing what we call Meatless Mondays, because if the world reduced their meat consumption by 15%, which is not eating meat one day of the week, then that would be the same greenhouse gas reductions as taking 240 million cars off of the road. And because animal agriculture, cows produce methane, which is a gas much more potent than carbon dioxide. If we all just gave it meat one day of the week, we could save so much.
Yeah, I think a group of us are going to be striking to the end of the day, so if you want to stay and strike, please do. That's about it. Thank you guys so much for coming.
People thought they were off their rockers. They'd never get that airplane off the ground. Till one morning out in Kitty Hawk in that Carolina sky, she flew 12 seconds before she came back down. Then people thought the sky was the limit, that going to the moon could not be done. But when the eagle landed, that brave space cowboy took one small step and proved everybody wrong. Out there, dancing on a wire. Out there, running through the fire. They ain't afraid to fall. They live to risk it all. If you're gonna do a lot, then you gotta be a little out there. A seamstress from Montgomery, Alabama, stayed seated on a bus and took a stand. That brazen little move caused a revolution. She broke every boundary when she wouldn't budge an inch. So if you think that you won't make a difference, that what you're trying to prove is too bizarre, remember it's the dreamers, the do-or-die believers that march right into history just being who they are. Out there, dancing on a wire. Out there, running through the fire. They ain't afraid to fall. They live to risk it all. If you're gonna do a lot, then you gotta be a little out there. Oh, out there, busting down the fences. Out there, damn the consequences. Let's live to risk it all, and don't be afraid to fall. If we're gonna do a lot, then we gotta be a little out there. People thought they were off their rocker.
Nice.
Thank you.